Is Tennessee Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill a fantasy football sleeper? I got a fantasy football expert who says exactly that. We're going to talk about that and more fantasy football related items on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, it is time for our Tennessee Titans fantasy football extravaganza. We got a lot to talk about on today's show. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Thank you guys for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first to listen each and every day, Monday through Friday. Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. I teased it and I delivered, ladies and gentlemen. I got a big fish here. We got a special guest on the show. We got Kate Magdzuik. She is the managing editor for Behind the Steel Curtain. We'll let it slide that she's a Steelers fan for the time being, everybody. Put the knives down. She's also a fantasy football analyst for Pro Football Focus for Yahoo Fantasy. Also, one of my esteemed co-workers, a host for the Locked On Dynasty Fantasy Football Show for the Locked On Podcast Network. And of course, one of the leaders over at Ball Blast NFL, talking all things fantasy. I mean, one of the best in the absolute business. Very excited to have you on, Kate. Thank you so much. And I know you got a little bit of a, we'll call it a spicy take on one of the Tennessee Titans fantasy options. I'll honestly just give you the floor. What do you think about Ryan Tannehill this year?
I really like Ryan Tannehill as a sleeper, and I feel like this is like the loneliest island I've probably ever been on in my entire life. Now, like, you can speak more to the quarterback competition than I have, but like, I've gotten the sense that it's not really been much of a competition.
Right.
Is that fair to say? Like,
it's a competition for the backup spot, but definitely, yes. Yeah, Tannehill is, unless there's an injury, Tannehill is comfortable in his spot for this season.
Yeah, and like, you know, I don't know, looking at ADP right now, average draft position over on Fantasy Pros, which, takes into account like Yahoo, ESPN, wherever you're drafting. Right now, he's being drafted on average as the quarterback 30, which I think is a little insane for a guy who just got one of the best wide receivers in the league in DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
I think that's going to elevate his passing game significantly over what we saw last season. He's healthy, not managing injuries that we saw in 2022. I think that's a really underrated, part of the discourse on Ryan Tannehill. But over the past two seasons prior to A.J. Brown's departure, Tannehill ranked 7th among quarterbacks in PFF passing grade, finished as a QB9, QB12 in back-to-back seasons. He's got the ability to scramble, scored 20 total rushing touchdowns, over 55 starts. Like, that is the recipe for a fantasy football sleeper in and of itself. And he's probably going to go undrafted in most fantasy football leagues. Now, the return of Treylon Burks into the mix as he gets healthier, hopefully a bit more conditioned than we saw last year. The addition of DeAndre Hopkins, I'm just having a hard time figuring out what I'm missing with Ryan Tannehill. Is there any insight you can give me, or can I scream this take a little bit louder so that we can say it for the people in the back?
No, I would. No, I don't think you're crazy. I would scream it a little bit louder. I think the last time that we saw Ryan Tannehill with two consistent wide receivers on the outside, he, like you said, 2019, 2020, he was a very viable fantasy quarterback. And I think with some of the quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields, who are really running these days, that quarterbacks are getting pushed up the board a little bit, the top quarterbacks, which gives you even more value for some of those sleepers. So I agree with you on Tannehill. Plus, in a new offense with better pass blocking offensive linemen should help him stay on his feet a little bit more than he did last year, and then in turn stay healthy. I think you're on to something there. But of course, Kate, when we talk Titans and fantasy football, the first name that comes up is Derrick Henry. What are your thoughts on Derrick Henry this season? Are you fading the big dog?
I am fading the big dog, which really hurts me because Derrick
Right.
Henry, year over year, one of my favorite players in the league. I have a Derrick Henry jersey, which I actually can't believe I didn't put on for this podcast. That's actually my bad. But
We'll give
probably
you
would have been
credit
a little
still.
blast. Yeah, would have been a little blasphemous for me to come on and say I'm fading Derrick Henry here. Drafted right now on average as the running back 6 off the board, going in the early second round. But again, every single year we say this is the year of decline for Derrick Henry. I'm not necessarily saying decline is what we're going to say, but I would argue that this is one of the most diverse offenses that we've seen from the Tennessee Titans over the last several years. Like, between, I think this is the best 1-2 punch we've seen at the wide receiver position, for a long time. I even outside of what we saw from Treylon Burks last year, like I would love to see them, work him around the formation a little bit more. He was primarily a slot receiver in college. Like there's still a lot to unlock in terms of this passing offense. Then there's the addition of Tajay Spears in the third round. Was absolutely incredible in his final season, almost 1,600 rushing yards, 19 touchdowns. He's got a smaller build, but he looked fantastic in this preseason. Ran tough, and I would argue ran a lot bigger than his size. 4.73 yards after
already
contact
learned
per
that
rush
stiff
attempt.
arm from Derrick Henry. He's
Yes,
already got it
yes.
down.
Like, you know what? That if you're gonna learn the stiff arm, you might as well learn it from the best in the biz. Now, I think the passing, the passing assets paired with, I think, a guy that seems to be one of the most viable backup running backs for this squad in a long time that which is kind of surprising given, that the identity of this team has been a run first team behind Derrick Henry. I'd argue that Spears is one of the best players that we've seen in this position with the opportunity to spell him. I'm not projecting that he's going to fall off a cliff, but I am saying that I have some concerns about how early he's being drafted. Early second round for a 29-year-old running back in an evolving offense. I have my concerns.
Yeah, that seems fair. And I get what you're saying. You're not saying that Derrick Henry is going to be worse as a player. You're saying the addition of Tajay Spears is going to cut into that a little bit. The diversification and the new elements of the offense may result in more passing and all that. That all makes sense. I understand that. I do want to ask you one last Titans-related question. Out of the young guys for the Titans, Chigakonkwo, tight end, Tajay Spears, the rookie running back, Treylon Burks at wide receiver. I know their ADPs aren't all in a similar spot, but out of those three, which one of those guys are maybe you more willing to add onto your team, maybe in the mid or late rounds of the draft?
I'm actually looking at Treylon Burks. Like I had mentioned, I'm really excited, especially for what DeAndre Hopkins brings to the situation, right? Like he's going to play on the outside. He's going to be that primary guy on the outside. But what I do think he adds is the ability for this team to get more creative with Treylon Burks coming out of college. Like with the ball in his hands, he literally just looks like a running back because he's so big. He's so elusive after the catch. That yards after the catch ability, I think they were really able to maximize that in college for him with playing him out of the slot and creating mismatches against, some guys that don't have that size speed combination to be able to cover him. 77% of his snaps in 3 seasons at Arkansas came out of the slot. 6'2", 225. That doesn't sound like a slot receiver, but the fixture of Hopkins there on the outside, I think just gives this Titans offense a little bit more luxury to try new things and emphasize the skill set that was worthy of a first round draft pick to begin with.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and I think the proliferation of the big slot in the NFL makes that more likely something they can do with Burks. Well, I actually had one more. What are your thoughts on Nick Folk as a fantasy? Just kidding, just kidding. We're gonna move forward. We're gonna get some of Kate's thoughts on the big picture NFL, maybe some of her sleepers, or maybe not even sleepers, just guys that she really believes in this season. Before we get into that, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 right now on FanDuel Sportsbook will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can be on everything from the spreads to player props and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on. That's one word, locked on, and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, Titans fans, we are back with our fantasy expert, Kate Magdzuik. Very excited to have Kate on the show. We just talked about some Tennessee Titans related fantasy info. Now we're going to kind of spin it forward. I want to try to get you guys ready for your NFL fantasy drafts. And you're not just drafting Titans out there. If you are, I respect it, but you're crazy. But with that being said, do want to get some of Kate's thoughts before we get into it. Do want to thank you guys again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday. Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Do want to let you guys know at the end of the show, we are going to talk about the addition of Trevis Gipson, the edge rusher from the Chicago Bears, making the Tennessee Titans defensive front even that much more nasty for the upcoming season. So make sure that you stick around for that. But Kate, I guess like I did last segment, I'll kind of just give you the floor here. I don't need it to be sleepers or wherever you want to go. Just maybe some guys who you truly believe in this fantasy season, regardless of where they're being drafted.
Heck yeah, I love the opportunity to talk up some of my favorite guys here. How about I give you one at each position that I'm like all
Sure.
in on for the season? We'll start at quarterback. Though I do love Ryan Tannehill as a sleeper, there's a guy that I think might have a little bit more upside as a passer, and that might be of surprise to you guys, but it's Sam Howell, Washington Commanders quarterback,
Ooh.
who has absolutely dominated the preseason, I think, in terms of looking competent as a passer. But what is really exciting about Sam Howell is, I think, what is one of the more underrated rushing skill sets among the projected starters for 2023 quarterbacks. In his final season at UNC, Howell ranked third in the FBS with 1,104 rushing yards in the regular season. That, again, third most rushing yards.
Right.
Like he was so productive on the ground. Like imagine a combination of like Baker Mayfield's kind of scrappiness plus, Russell Wilson's a little bit more of his finesse and that mobility. Now he heads into year 2. The team seems really high on him. Ron Rivera seems very confused as to where his Studley quarterback came from.
That's such a weird thing. He didn't know
Yes.
that they were going to be eliminated. They were already eliminated the last week. And then he says this year, I didn't realize how good Sam Howell was. It's like Ron Rivera talks like he's a fan of the team, not the head coach. It's very confusing.
Yes, like doesn't speak very highly of his ability to evaluate the own talent that he sees in the
Yeah.
roster. But he's going to be throwing to Terry McLaurin, one of the better wide receivers in the NFL, though he is dealing
Underrated.
with a turf toe injury. A guy I have projected for a second-year breakout in Jahan Dotson. Curtis Samuel, a excellent kind of gadget player who adds a lot of versatility to that offense as his wide receiver 3. Like I think this looks like a great late round value with that rushing upside. At the running back position, I got to talk about Alexander Madison, who, now takes over as the lead back in the Vikings offense. It's kind of interesting. I think the stats have maybe skewed away from Alexander Madison. He wasn't as efficient as Dalvin Cook, but
Right.
this guy's gonna freaking eat. The team cut 7th round rookie Dwayne McBride. The team has said, Vikings beat writer Alec Lewis said the team is very committed to Alexander being the guy. In opportunities where he's gotten start outside of in the absence of Dalvin Cook, this guy has
Right.
produced, right around 20 fantasy points per game. Like there might not be a better value of running backs that have the potential to touch the ball 15 to 20 times any given week that are being drafted as late as Alexander Madison. That like I don't know what we're doing here.
Volume is
Being
king.
drafted.
Volume is king in fantasy football. Talent.
It
I always say
is.
it's talent and then volume. How much do you get the ball and what can you do when you have the ball? And Alexander Madison may not be as talented as Dalvin Cook, but he's surely going to get a ton of volume. So that I agree with you. That definitely matters.
RB21 in fantasy football drafts right now, heading
Right.
into the biggest draft weekend of the year. I'm going to take that value. At wide receiver, I have a lot of guys that I really, really like this season. DeAndre Hopkins, one of those top guys, wide receiver 22 on average right now. But to mix it up a little bit, I want to shout out Deontay Johnson, wide receiver for my favorite team, who I think is getting overlooked a bit,
It's the
particularly
Kenny
due to the
Pickett
splash.
factor.
Yeah, but you know what? It's also the George Pickens factor because George Pickens
Yeah.
is a walking highlight reel, and Deontay
Yeah.
Johnson, his highlight reel plays are not they're not splash plays, generally speaking. Like Deontay Johnson's finesse is in his route running. And you know what?
Yeah.
Route running doesn't necessarily always make it onto Sports Center, unfortunately. Even if we
Right.
should appreciate these guys, Deontay Johnson, like there is no wide receiver that is being drafted later than Deontay Johnson that has a potential to legitimately see 140 plus targets once again. Never had fewer than 90 targets ever in
Yeah.
his career so
Yeah.
far. Drafting him on average as the wide receiver 33. We're projecting an uptick in production. I don't
Yeah.
think he's a big touchdown guy, but the potential, especially in full PPR formats with that target share, absolutely huge. And then to close out, I want to give a shout out to tight end who probably isn't even on most radars right now, Jake Ferguson, tight end for the Dallas Cowboys, suited up as tight end 29 in current
Dalton Schultz
ADP.
replacement, right?
Dalton Schultz replacement. We know this offense has a propensity,
Yep.
especially Dak Prescott has this propensity for targeting and involving the tight end position. Dalton Schultz is out of town. I think there's a lot of confusion just because of the fact that, this team took Lynn Schumacher in the second round. There's Peyton Hendershot who made the final 53. Like, there's a lot of different variables, but if you want it straight from the source, we talked about him on the Locked On Dynasty podcast today as one of the biggest winners in the preseason. He's actually been super efficient, was targeted on 3 of a very limited snaps with Dak Prescott under center, targeted on 37.5% of his routes in the preseason, which is a ridiculous number. He's been efficient. He's actually, going into his second NFL season, but Marcus Mosher, my co-host of Locked On Dynasty plus Locked On Cowboys, has
Cowboys.
a
Yep.
lot of exciting things to say about Jake Ferguson and dropped in a couple of interesting tidbits and insider pieces of information in today's show. But from the horse's mouth, he said that he would be comfortable with Jake Ferguson as his tight end 1 in not overall, but slotting him in as his tight end, lead tight end in the 2023 season, which from the Cowboys guy, I'm going to take that to heart, especially given the opportunity vacated by Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, no, Marcus knows his stuff in and out. He really does. I think Marcus is one of the, more brilliant guys on all of, football, Twitter in general. So if he's giving you some Cowboys nuggets, definitely smart to take that to heart. Kate, absolutely fantastic. Knocked it out of the park. This is what you expect when you get someone of your caliber. Hopefully we can make this an every year thing and check in with you before the season on these type of things. Guys, make sure, again, to check out all of Kate's work, managing editor, behind the steel curtain, analyst for Pro Football Focus, Yahoo Sports, Locked On Dynasty. Make sure that you guys go download that. It's the perfect time. Follow with them throughout the entire season. Kate, thanks so much for coming on. We're going to move forward here, folks. Talk about Trevis Gipson being added to the Tennessee Titans. Before we talk about that, though, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Buying tickets for your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is fast and easy, and it's the perfect way to buy tickets for not just sports, but music, comedy, theater shows near you. They're going to have killer last-minute deals and their best price guarantee. So you can stop stressing over tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you will have. You can get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. I really appreciated that when I made a spontaneous purchase for some Cincinnati Reds tickets about a month ago. So make sure that you guys snag tickets without the stress on Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked with Kate Magdzuik about Ryan Tannehill being a sleeper and some other Tennessee Titans-related fantasy football items. We talked about some of her general NFL guys that she's very interested in this year. Hope that helped you guys as you get ready for your fantasy football drafts this weekend and all the fantasy football action that's going to be coming as soon as the season kicks off. Big shout out to Kate. Appreciate her coming on, but we got to talk about an addition the Tennessee Titans made late on Wednesday night. It was Trevis Gipson, the edge rusher from the Chicago Bears. The Bears waived Gipson. The Titans were able to pick him up. They didn't need to claim him off waivers or anything, just able to add him to the roster late on Wednesday night. We got that information from Gipson himself, who tweeted "Tighten up" on Wednesday night, and it kind of tipped everybody off that he was joining the team. But if you guys don't remember Trevis Gipson, let me remind you. He was the man who destroyed the Tennessee Titans in week 1 of the preseason against the Chicago Bears. You guys remember number 99 from the Chicago Bears that was literally in the backfield every single play against the Titans in that game? Do you? I remember. And if you don't, go to my Twitter account at TicTacTitans, where I posted the highlight reel from Trevis Gipson's performance against the Titans in week 1. He absolutely cooked the Titans, period. But it wasn't just the Titans. Trevis Gipson had the most pressures of any player in the preseason this year. Trevis Gipson had 7 sacks in 2021. 7 sacks. Last year, in 2022, he was the 5th most double-team pass rusher in the NFL. Think about that. Think about that. It's crazy. Okay? Now, why is Trevis Gipson available then? If he's so good, Tyler, why would the Bears let a guy go who had 7 sacks and all these pressures? And Trevis Gipson requested a trade from the Chicago Bears because they switched defensive alignments. In 2021 and 2020, when Gipson was first with the Bears, they ran a 3-4. When Matt Eberflus, former Colts defensive coordinator, got hired to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears in 2022, they switched to a 4-3. Gipson has been outspoken about the fact that he is more comfortable in a 3-4 defense than he is a 4-3 defense. And because of that, he wanted out of Chicago. He wanted to be traded. Folks, the Titans just got a steal because of circumstance. It's funny that DeMarcus Walker, who had 7 sacks for the Titans last year and was one of their best pass rushers all year, left and went and signed a 3-year deal worth $21 million for the Bears. Now the Titans are adding Trevis Gipson, who can essentially be a replacement for DeMarcus Walker from the Bears for a fraction of that cost. I mean, Trevis Gipson isn't going to make any kind of normal contract that you're used to seeing in regular free agency. It's going to be a 1-year deal worth close to the minimum. This is a steal. And we've talked about the edge rusher position. And I have said consistently, you only keep 4 edge rushers because you simply don't have the talent. Sam Okwe-Enonu and Thomas Rush are not good enough to make this roster. I don't care if you need edge rush help or not. They are not talented enough players to keep them over other players at other positions who are just simply more talented. You're not going to keep, just because everybody plays Madden, you're not going to keep 62 overall edge rusher over a 70 overall wide receiver just because you need edge rushers. No, you keep the better player and figure it out later. And the Titans have figured it out later. Now the Titans have 5 guys on the edge with Key, Landry, Weaver, Murphy. Now they add Gipson. And Gipson could have some inside-outside versatility as well and maybe be a potential replacement for Danico Autry after the season. This is a dynamite home run, knock it out of the park addition, quite honestly. Now, look, are the Titans adding prime Von Miller here? No, that's not what I'm saying. My excitement is not to make you believe that the Titans just got an all-pro. But these are the fringe moves, like DeMarcus Walker, that can impact the team in a major way. Everybody always has this thought process of, oh, is this guy a Pro Bowler? Oh, then he's a bum. There's in between. There are role players that are valuable and key members. And I think Gipson is going to be that. This is Jeffrey Simmons, Tierre Tart, Danico Autry, Harold Landry, Arden Key, Rashad Weaver, Trevis Gipson, Caleb. I mean, the Titans are going to eat quarterbacks alive this year. I cannot wait. So excited. Again, go to my Twitter account, @TicTacTitans. On Wednesday night, I basically reposted a highlight reel from the All-22 of Gipson tearing the Titans apart. 7 sacks in 2021, 5th most double-team edge rusher in the NFL in 2022, most pressures in the NFL preseason 2023. And the only reason he's not on the Bears anymore is because he didn't want to play in a 4-3 and he wants to play in a 3-4. Welcome to Nashville, Trevis. You killed us in week 1. We'll happily add you now. But that's going to do it for today's show. A lot of you guys have been asking me for a fantasy-related episode. Last episode of the week before we really dig into the regular season next week. Wanted to make sure I got that for you guys. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.